The House has now resumed its sitting. Please be seated. The House resumes its sitting. The Honorable Minister of Health continuing. Minister, you have 1 hour and a half left.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to
Minister, may I call on the Premier for the suspension?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of Standing Order 10-2 in order that the business of the House may continue beyond the hour of interruption.
Thank you. The question is that Standing Order 10-2 be suspended in order for business to continue till 9 o'clock. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. Honorable Minister of Health.
thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as it has not been mentioned, I want to mention an observation. As young as I am, I believe I'm correct in saying that you are creating history by sitting in that very seat today. And I don't think that any other member in this honorable House has been leader of government business, premier, speaker, minister, MLA, and opposition leader. And I think the House deserves a clap.
I don't know if that was such a good thing. But I thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I know that you appreciate, as many of us in this House do, that unless we are ensure that we have a growing economy, we will not have the business that generates the revenue that government depends on to provide the services to our people. Mr. Speaker, revenues earned from financial services, tourism, development, and all other sectors help us to fund our health services, education, social security and welfare, as well as security services, police, fire, prison, customs, and so on. Mr. Speaker, these four broad areas alone account for 63% of the total budget. National security is the largest at 22%, with education at 17% of the budget and health services at 15%. Social services and welfare account for some 9% of the budget. Of these, only health services has the remit and the ability to make a contribution to government coffers by charging reasonable fees for services provided. I mention this, Mr. Speaker, to point out that this government is not only adequately funding these necessary services, but to also point out that this money does not fall to earth like manna from heaven. It comes from duties and fees paid by families and businesses. But we know that it is the business that contributes to the bulk of this funding, whether directly to the coffers of government or indirectly by creating jobs, and in purchasing from the supporting our local businesses. This economic ecosystem needs to be appreciated and nurtured and allowed to grow sustainably so that all of us in the Cayman Islands can benefit. Mr. Speaker, we can benefit by having opportunities for jobs through enhancing the education system, as well as by ensuring that there are real opportunities available for jobs. These, and Mr. Speaker, let me pause as I say that, because a lot of times we have a lot of businessmen and we see a lot of persons coming with projects and so forth, coming to the Cayman Islands, promising that they can provide all these jobs for Caymanians. And at the end of the day, for some reason, the way we signed the contract, they can't be held to account in terms of employing the amount of Caymanians that was set out. Madam Speaker, we need to take Mr. Speaker, my apology. We need to take a different approach in approving these projects coming to this country. There's no sense of us approving any project that does not mean Caymanians any good. And Mr. Speaker, there are many ways that we could approach, the government can approach these persons who come to us on a monthly basis with new projects, etc. We need to somehow tie them to what they set out. And if it's not met, they're penalized, Mr. Speaker, because the government only acts on the strength of what it can do for Caymanians. And we have surely been misled, not only this government, but many other governments have been misled in terms of what the projections said in the start. This budget and the policies and plans it puts forward addresses these issues and looks to ensure that Caymanian families will benefit. It also seeks to benefit the needs of businesses, especially small businesses, to ensure that these engines of our economy can grow strong so that Cayman and Caymanians can remain strong. This is the prosperity to which the Premier spoke of, and for those who need a bit of help, we will ensure they are not left out or left behind. We are a caring and empathetic government, and so we will not only ensure that social welfare programs receive additional funds to assist people in need, but also that the elderly and those with special needs are cared for. It is a budget that provides a stable society, but ensuring that needed infrastructure in its place, and by enhancing our security in our communities and around our borders. Doing so while keeping government finances stable, while providing good surpluses, putting cash aside for rainy day, and in paying down debt, all while introducing no new taxes. There is no such thing as perfection, Mr. Speaker, but I know that you will appreciate the effort and decisions that go into creating a budget. There are some across the floor who have sat on the government benches and who may have some idea as to what it takes to get where we are today. But even they have not done this for many years. So I dare say that while the process may be familiar to them, the scale of the many needs one has to decide on today is not what it was when they were here. So we have worked hard over many weeks and have arrived at a balanced budget that provides the surpluses needs, but yet allows the country and our people to meet our many needs. It was important to me to mention these things, Mr. Speaker, because it is important that the country appreciates how well this government of unity has worked together over these 5 months. And as this budget shows, we have done so much to make lives of Caymanians better. Mr. Speaker, since coming to office earlier this year, I have found that there has been much work that has been happening and progress being made. However, there is still much more to be done. I have heard, Mr. Speaker, about the challenges that have arisen and have been met over the past several years as government has worked to get its finances back on firm footing. Mr. Speaker, the public demand for government services and their expectation of quality services has increased over the years. But government simply cannot afford to meet every expectation and undertake all of the projects that are needed or requested. It is a struggle that I am sure many of my colleagues in this honorable House can relate to and have experienced firsthand. However, Mr. Speaker, as I said before, I believe that through some tough decisions, some tough discussions, our government has arrived at a budget that will help the country grow and that fosters the stability, empathy, and prosperity that the Honorable Premier spoke about in his contribution. As Minister, I would like to first take this opportunity to update the members of this Honorable House on some of the work that has been done before I moved on to outlining my ministry's plans for the upcoming budget period. Mr. Speaker, the current financial year saw many changes. It was an 18-month budget, 18-month financial period to move our financial year in to coincide with the calendar year. And there was an election in the midst of the financial year as well. And while the government's financial situation had improved, there was still a need for prudent budgeting and close monitoring of expenditures. This was important to ensure that we do not lose the gains made in recent years to stabilize government finances. Despite these many challenges, my ministry and the agency under my ministry have worked extremely hard to deliver our outputs with the resources available. In health, my ministry spans a broad range of subject areas. Mr. Speaker, so I will take some time to address each in turn, starting with the subject area of health. The Department of Health Regulatory Services continued their work under the health practice law with the registration of approximately 1,472 healthcare practitioners with their respective councils at September 2017, an increase of approximately 19%. Over the previous years, from September 2016, the Medical and Dental Council currently has approximately 481 registered practitioners as of September 2017. The Council for Professional Allied and Medicine has approximately 429 registered practitioners. The Nursing and Midwifery Council has 489 registered practitioners, and the Pharmacy Council has 73 registered practitioners at September 2017. The DHRS had also supported the Health Practice Commission with the inspection and registration of approximately 144 healthcare facilities over the 3 islands. This is an increase of approximately 15% in the number of healthcare facilities over the previous year. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the hardworking staff at the Department of Health and Regulatory Services for their efforts, as well as the members of the Health Practice Commission and the various councils for the time they have given up to help ensure that the healthcare practitioners who deliver healthcare in the Cayman Islands are appropriately qualified and experienced, and the healthcare facilities are held to appropriate patient safety standards. Mr. Speaker, many members will recall that there have been some amendments to the health insurance law and regulations over the past several years, including the recent introduction of a process for the certification and renewal of 9 approved healthcare insurance providers. This new process allows the Health Insurance Commission to more closely review and monitor the approved insurance on a regular basis, and is designed to ensure that the approved insurers meet conditions and appropriate standards to conduct health insurance business. Mr. Speaker, the Superintendent of Health Insurance and his team have been working closely with the Health Insurance Commission to educate all of the stakeholders regarding their rights and obligations under the health insurance law and regulations. They have also worked very hard to resolve approximately 77% of the complaints and inquiries they receive regarding health insurance in the Cayman Islands. Mr. Speaker, on average, there are usually approximately 500 health insurance related issues per month that the team of DHRS has to investigate and address. A hefty amount, I may add. These issues include notifications of policy terminations from approved insurers, complaints from healthcare providers, complaints and inquiries from insured persons, and complaints and inquiries from the approved insurers. I want to commend the staff at the DHRS and the Health Insurance Commission members for the work they have been doing to deal with these many issues and on an ongoing basis. Mr. Speaker, over the past financial period, the Superintendent of Health Insurance also worked closely with the team at the Department of Immigration to improve information sharing and clarify the requirements for health insurance for all categories of work permit applications, and increase the ability to monitor and enforce the provisions of health insurance law. Mr. Speaker, I must say I am proud of the Health Insurance Commission Committee for taking on the challenge of 60 for older persons. As when persons retire, it's hard to get health insurance and it's more expensive. So we need to protect our elderly and ensure that they get the best care possible, and to ensure that it's affordable. Mr. Speaker, I am still baffled at how we don't cover children, how our children don't have free health care. This is a vexing issue for many people throughout the country. It isn't, Mr. Speaker, I want to say, I want to note this publicly, that if you understand the strain that this has caused, and we need to note what has happened over the past 20 years of the indirect taxes that have been levied on our people. One of them being health insurance, where they had to cover their their children. These policies, Mr. Speaker, can go up to $1,500. You imagine $1,500 coming out per month out of a person's salary? The amount of things that they could do with this and the quality of things that they could do for their children. We need to find a way to ensure that the parents of this country are relieved. The increased compliance that has resulted from their joint efforts in a real win-win for all involved, as in an excellent example for agencies to follow. Mr. Speaker, I would now like to speak to some of the work that has been done in the area of mental health. The global statistics suggest that 1 in 5 people suffer with mental health issues, which is a staggering figure. And Mr. Speaker, the Cayman Islands are facing a similar level of incidence, including their children, Mr. Speaker, and some of our members in here. If we do not spot incidents in children early enough and get them appropriate, help them in many cases, they will have many more challenges as they progress to adulthood. It is an area of our health, Mr. Speaker, that I believe we all need to increase our focus if we hope to achieve health and well-being for all. I'm pleased to report, Mr. Speaker, that the Mental Health Commission has continued to meet on a regular basis to address many important issues around mental health in the Cayman Islands. Mr. Speaker, the 9-member commission is chaired by Dr. Mark Lockhart and has a broad mandate regarding mental health in the Cayman Islands. They have been working to increase awareness, particularly with the training of frontline staff such as police officers, social workers, and healthcare providers. And Mr. Speaker, I mentioned earlier indirect taxes. It's not indirect taxes, it's indirect cost, as it's not paid to the government. Mr. Speaker, they have been working to increase awareness, particularly with training of frontline staff such as police officers, social workers, and healthcare providers. I am confident that the work they do and the advice they give to the ministry will help to improve all aspects of mental health in the Cayman Islands. In addition to the work of the Mental Health Commission, the ministry has been forging ahead with the procurement process for a long-term residential mental health facility and the formulation of a mental health policy. I am pleased to advise, Mr. Speaker, that the mental health policy has been completed, and I plan to table it in this honorable House in the very near future. Staying with mental health, I'd like to now speak to some of the work that has been done by the Department of Counseling Services, which includes the Family Resource Center, the Counseling Center, and the Caribbean Haven Residential Center. Mr. Speaker, during the past year, programs and services offered by the Department of Counseling Services were expanded are enhanced to more effectively address a broader range of emerging needs in our society and to improve the functioning of those who access services. The Family Resource Center extended their skill building programs offered to parents to 12 weeks to improve outcomes. And staff were trained to deliver specialized parenting programs that target special need populations. The Family Resource Center also introduced SNAP, an internationally recognized model for teaching troubled children and their parents effective emotion regulation, self-control, and problem-solving skills. In addition, new support groups have been introduced to help victims of domestic violence. Mr. Speaker, the Counseling Center restructured their hours of service delivery to be more responsive to persons presenting in crisis and to more effectively coordinate their care during this difficult time. They also undertook co-facilitation of groups with FRC to enhance programs. Mr. Speaker, at the Caribbean Haven Residential Center, they undertook an expansion of the adjunct services such as creative arts therapy and farming, as well as a modification to the length of the program that offers more options to meet the needs of the population that they serve. I would like to now speak to the work of the National Drug Council. Over the past financial period, Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to be advised that members of this Honorable House that the National Drug Council has continued their efforts to educate and prevent drug and alcohol abuse on many fronts. They have continued their advocacy for change to the liquor license law and increased social responsibility, as well as working on the development of a prevention framework to guide prevention efforts. They have also been working to increase the connection with the school curriculum, creating sessions, outlines, activities, and resources for drug education and prevention programming. Mr. Speaker, this has included a particular focus on the development of education and prevention curriculum for primary schools. In addition, the National Drug Council has continued their effort Youth to Youth program, which engage young people through meaningful activities and experiences to develop and implement their own ideas to create positive change. The NDC recently launched the Youth to Youth program in Cayman Brac, and I would like to thank the residents of Cayman Brac for their support of this new initiative. The NDC also completed the administration of the prison survey for 2017. The data gathered in this survey will aid the development and strengthening of programs and policies and allow for more informed advocacy for policies and programs that assist in rehabilitation. The data will also help the NDC to understand the nature and extent of the substance use among inmates in the Cayman Islands and to be able to determine the trend in drug use patterns over the time. Mr. Speaker, the National Drug Council has also completed the first ever evaluation of a drug treatment court, the results of which they will be sharing with the judicial stakeholders in the coming weeks. While health is a national issue, I think we can all agree, Mr. Speaker, that we each have a role to play in ensuring our individual health and well-being. The incidence of chronic, non-communicable diseases amongst the global population has continued to escalate, and the Cayman Islands is following those global trends. Diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, chronic respiratory disease, and cancer are all significant challenges for us as a nation. And they're driving up our healthcare costs, but also their negative impact on the quality of life of our people who suffer with these conditions. We're also struggling with an increasing incidence of overweight and obesity among our residents of all ages, including our children. Mr. Speaker, the connection between nutrition and health was explored at the 8th Annual Healthcare Conference, which took place in late October, and I am pleased to advise that over the course of the conference, over 1,200 delegates attended to hear from our excellent local and overseas speakers and learn firsthand about the latest information and some practical tips to help them translate that information into action. Mr. Speaker, I must add that 8 years ago, when this conference first took place, the ministry was very happy and excited that 250 people had attended the conference. So I'm happy that at this point, 8 years later, we now have over 1,200 delegates. It is my sincere hope, Mr. Speaker, that everyone who attended the conference will make a commitment to themselves to make some positive changes, no matter how small, to improve their personal health and well-being. It is often the small, sustainable changes, Mr. Speaker, that add up to big benefits. While there have been challenges, and I will speak to these later on, Mr. Speaker, my goal for the conference next year is to include schools and children. We need to educate the next generation. The Health Services Authority did have successes in the 2016-17 financial year. The authority put a particular emphasis on their financial systems and processes with some positive results. They increased their cash reserves from $3.8 million in June 2016 to $26 million at the end of August 2017, achieving a 90-day cash reserve as mandated in the Health Services Authority law for the first time in the history of the authority. The collections were improved by 57%, or $34 million, for the 12-month period ending 31st of August 2017, and reduced their bad debt provision by 52% from $15.5 million at the end of August 2016 to $7.4 million at the end of August 2017. The HSA embarked on several capital improvements, including the completions of work at the replacement backup generator for the Georgetown Hospital to increase the generator capacity to power 100% of the hospital operations should the need arise. And Mr. Speaker, we do know that at some point that need will arise. And when it does, this necessary improvement may help in saving lives. In addition to improving their finances and capital project, the authorities also work hard to improve the patient experience at the HSA. This included the introduction of a new online patient portal that allows patient electronic access to their medical records and appointment scheduling. They also strengthened their public health surveillance through the expansion of clinical diagnostic capabilities for testing of viral diseases and may pose a threat to the public health, such as dengue, Zika, chikungunya, and work with the MRCU to have the Cayman Islands removed from the CDC advisory list of countries with Zika. This was important to ensure that our valued tourism business was not damaged by this listing. But it also helped reassure the public that we are safe from this deadly virus. It is also notable, Mr. Speaker, that the HSA has undertaken a targeted campaign to register new blood donors which has increased the blood donor pool by 50% by adding 500 new donors. We are fortunate to have so many individuals willing to give time and plasma to help save a life. Mr. Speaker, my ministry has two other health-related agencies, the Department of Health, of Environmental Health, and the Mosquito Research and Control Unit. In the 16-17 financial year, the Mosquito Research and Control Unit continued to provide its usual outstanding level of service. During the year, they continued their control efforts against disease-carrying mosquitoes with an emphasis on prevention of local transmission of dengue, chikungunya, Zika, and malaria. Their efforts in this regard include house-to-house inspections, ground and aerial applications, and perimeter treatments. However, Mr. Speaker, it is important to note that the department continues its work to control the domestic pest mosquitoes, mainly swamp and pasture land mosquito species that are a biting nuisance on all 3 islands. Control of these is important from an economic as well as a quality of life perspective. The department has continued to utilize aircraft for conventional insecticide control and ground fogging vehicles to reduce and control the number of adult biting mosquitoes. In addition, Mr. Speaker, the MRCU has continued utilizing aircraft to conduct large-scale applications of larvicide granules and pellets on all 3 islands to kill aquatic stages larvae and thereby prevent emergence of biting mosquitoes. They have addressed a total treatment area approximately 16,000 acres, targeting mean breeding sites, tourist locations, and center of human population. The Aedes aegypti mosquito, which is an invasive species in the Cayman Islands, is the primary vector of viruses including Zika, dengue, chikungunya, and yellow fever. The friendly Aedes aegypti is a genetically modified male mosquito which is effectively sterile. When it mates with a female Aedes aegypti mosquito, the offspring dies before they can reproduce. Hence, with successive releases, the Aedes aegypti population is reduced. The friendly Aedes aegypti male mosquito cannot bite or transmit diseases to humans. Mr. Speaker, the evaluation of the friendly Aedes aegypti technique for control of this disease vector is recommended by the World Health Organization and has been approved by use by the authorities in the Cayman Islands. The department is currently reviewing the success rate of the program to date and are discussing the next steps to further explore the use of this new tool in the control of Aedes aegypti. Equally important is the work of the Department of Environmental Health. Over the past financial period, the hard-working team at DOE, the Department of Environmental Health, continues to deliver their services that are so essential to the public health in the Cayman Islands. The DEH fills some key personnel positions, including 2 environmental health officers, district and food, the public relations officer, and an engineering officer. Mr. Speaker, filling these positions has improved the operations and efficiencies of the DEH operation. Mr. Speaker, the DEH also took on 6 temporary workers to assist with the continued success of the expanded recycling program and the landfill operations. And in my opinion, they should keep them on full time. Mr. Speaker, by dropping their recyclable materials at the collection bins, which are conveniently located at the supermarkets in Grand Cayman, residents are now able to recycle glass and ceramic, cardboard and mixed paper, plastics, number 1 and number 2, and aluminum cans, which with each of us doing our part to recycle through DEH expanded recycling program, we can see a reduction in the amount of waste that is going into the landfill. Mr. Speaker, I visited the landfill, the recycling area, and it's amazing the quality of work that our Caymanians are doing. This only goes to say, Mr. Speaker, our Caymanians only need a chance. Mr. Speaker, members will be aware that we have not had any major landfill fires in the past 18 months. This has been the result of some significant ongoing operational improvements at the Georgetown landfill. In addition, as part of the fire prevention and monitoring, the department has installed 3 cameras at the landfill in Cayman Brac and 2 cameras at the landfill in Little Cayman. And access to these camera feeds will also be given to 911 and the fire department. Another long-standing problem is on its way to be resolved, Mr. Speaker, namely the massive stockpile of used tires. A contract for the processing of used tires was rendered through the Central Tenders Committee, and local firm Island Recycling was the successful tenderer. I have been advised, Mr. Speaker, that the tire stockpile has been dramatically reduced and the work is nearly complete. It is also important to note, Mr. Speaker, that the product of the shredding is tire-derived aggregate, which is going to be used locally in keeping with our drive for sustainability and embracing the principles of reduce, reuse, recycle, and recover, and only then dispose, outlined in our National Solid Waste Management Policy. Mr. Speaker, continuing on the topic of waste management, it would be remiss of me not to mention the progress that has been made in the procurement process for the new integrated solid waste management system, as was announced recently. We have reached a stage in the procurement process of identifying a preferred bidder, and negotiations to agree a final contract are ongoing. It appears, Mr. Speaker, that we are on schedule to have a new integrated solid waste management system fully operational in early 2021. Some components of this system will be coming online earlier than that, but that is our target, to see the entire system up and running. Members may recall that the project includes several components, including composting, further expanded household waste recycling, waste to energy, and closure of the 3 existing landfills. I am excited, Mr. Speaker, very excited about the progress that has been made so far, and I am looking forward to seeing the process through the completion in the coming years. Mr. Speaker, many ministers have made attempts to bring some resolve, and I'm happy to be the minister standing here and bringing this forward. As they say, some plant and some water. Mr. Speaker, turning now to the subjects of environment and housing. The Department of the Environment has had a very busy year. The numerous important issues to deal with, while the National Housing Development Trust has been working to progress plans for affordable homes for Caymanians. Mr. Speaker, there are some untenable situations happening right now in the Cayman Islands, and there are some challenges ahead for this government to tackle, such as the National Conservation Law. And we have already started to put our review committee together to take this on head on. Mr. Speaker, there's also the vexing issue of the spare gun license. Mr. Speaker, I think that Caymanians need to have an edge on something. And I think our children need to get to see a bit of what we used to do when we were younger. And this spare gun law will be enacted very, very shortly, and Caymanians will be afforded the opportunity, albeit even if it's in small leaps, will be afforded the opportunity to again buy spare parts and to utilize their spare guns. Madam Speaker, my apologies. Mr. Speaker, I have seen firsthand the benefits of marine parks, and I was happy that we made these moves back then. We also have to be very conscious that we are not servicing the departments. The departments are servicing our people. And we need to remember why the loudest voice of this country elected 19 people to look at their affairs. And we need to remember who makes policy and who carries it out. Mr. Speaker, I have much appreciated assistance from Captain Eugene Ebanks, the member from West Bay Central, and Councillor, to assist me in these matters. And I so invite him to give a detailed update on these subjects in his upcoming budget address. I must note that we have the outstanding issue of green iguanas. I understand that we had some programs in place. Not a lot of people were happy with the bounty, the amount they were paying for the bounty, and we need to find a way to move this forward. But I understand while we were trying to find a way to move this forward in the best plan with the monies that have been given to us, that we have found a species in Cayman that is doing a very good job and are killing hundreds of them on a daily basis, mainly the dog. Mr. Speaker, in, in culture, while I'm very passionate about all of the subjects in my portfolio, I have to confess that I am especially passionate about culture. Members who know me will know that I have a lifelong love of culture and performing arts, particularly music and the visual arts. I just have this passion, Mr. Speaker, for seeing people enjoy quality entertainment. You know, having fun all together in unity. Music is one of the things that brings people together. The other is sports. So we cannot lose sight of this. I believe, Mr. Speaker, that culture is a subject area that is integral to several aspects of life in our islands, in particular because of the history of welcoming so many people of other nationalities to our shores. The work of the cultural entities and individuals is essential to protecting and promoting our culture and our heritage. And I believe that we need to do more to value the work and their contributions. Mr. Speaker, the Cayman Islands National Museum's highlight over the past year included the following inspirational exhibitions: Georgette Ebanks, the 25 years Piece by Piece, the museum dress up, legends of scuba diving, local honorees, Artist Smith in black and white, Shaped by the Sea, Captain Chucky Ebanks, and Ocean Conservation, Shark Talk. Mr. Speaker, these exhibitions were in addition to an exceptional audiovisual experience, interpreted garden, and the permanent natural and cultural historic galleries. The museum also provided complimentary school and special partner tours, a speaker series, and a monthly See What I'm Saying radio program. This past summer, the museum offered 2 one-week summer camps entitled Immerse for Youth, which were based on a maritime theme. The museum staff represented the museum at Carifesta and carried a special exhibition to Barbados in August. They also sent a young professional staff person to the Museums Association of the Caribbean Conference in October, and the director has been invited to give a keynote on the Caribbean underwater heritage at the 3rd Caribbean Conference for National Trust and Preservation Societies in Curacao in November. I think it is safe to say, Mr. Speaker, that the team at the Cayman Islands National Museum have had a busy and productive year. The Cayman National Cultural Foundation has also had a very busy year, but very productive, Mr. Speaker. The CNCF is in the extensive research and writing phase for a new book on the life and work of Caymanian intuitive artist Gladwin K. Bush, which we will delve further into her history and that of her community, and will feature previously unpublished works. The book is expected to be completed in early 2018, and I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, that it will be one that we'll all want to add to our collections. The CNCF was the focal point for organizing the Cayman Islands representation at the Caribbean Festival of Arts, Carifesta, in August this year in Barbados. Mr. Speaker, we were represented by a 47-member contingent. Some of the best of our islands have to offer in the disciplines of dance, drama, music, visual arts, literary arts, heritage preservation, and culinary arts. I am pleased to report, Mr. Speaker, that coverage of the Cayman Islands and Barbados national press was widely positive. Visual and heritage arts exhibitions, which were coordinated by the National Gallery and the National Museum, respectively, also received plaudits. Mr. Speaker, we have also had the benefit of being able to experience the tremendous talent on our local stage before departing for the Caribbean Festival of Arts. The CNCF presented the Carifesta Showcase over 3 nights at the Harkwell Theater for local audiences to experience the synthesis of theater, dance, live music, visual arts, and fashion being presented at Carifesta by exceptional Cayman artists. And on the youth front, for 5 weeks in July and August, the Young at Arts intensive students received training and development and rehearsed their work show production, an adaptation of Frank McField's Playground, including music, song, and dance. Their work show were presented at the Harkwell Studio over 4 performances from 4 to the 6th of August. Mr. Speaker, it was indeed a busy summer as the CNCF also offered their annual affordable summer camp for ages 6 to 16 with a focus on arts and culture. I am happy to report, Mr. Speaker, that the Cayman Islands folk singers, in pursuit of their goal of preserving, celebrating, and propagating the musical traditions of the Cayman Islands, currently has more than 25 songs in their repertoire. In addition to a variety of seasonal songs, work continues on the editing, mixing, and mastering of their soon-to-be-released CD of traditional Caymanian songs, which I am sure we can all agree will be a welcome addition to the catalog of traditional music. Staying with culture, Mr. Speaker, I would now like to touch on some of the achievements of the National Gallery of the Cayman Islands. Mr. Speaker, the National Gallery has executed an average of 60 events per month, which has included educational programs, events, and lectures. Through their efforts, they have reached 7,615 local students through education programming, school exhibition, and collection tours and festivals, and recorded approximately 22,139 general visitors to the National Gallery in 2016-17 year to date. Over the past year, Mr. Speaker, the National Gallery has hosted 8 major art exhibitions and several smaller education exhibitions with educational workshops, screening, and lectures for each of the major exhibitions. Highlights include the exhibitions Upon the Sea's Salt Water in Their Veins, Revive, Celebrating Tradition and Contemporary Caymanian Craft, and Horacio Esteban Sculpture, Artist, Artisan. Mr. Speaker, the National Gallery has also supported Caymanian artists in exhibitions in Miami, Barbados, Aruba, and London, and managed the exhibition for the Cayman Catboat Club. The National Gallery has also been working very hard to raise the visibility of the Cayman art scene abroad and increase their linkages regionally as part of their efforts. The National Gallery hosted 2 international arts and museum conferences. The Museum Association of the Caribbean Annual Conference, 2016 October, and Tilting Axis, a strategic regional group designed to create alliances for the further development of infrastructure, production, and markets for the Caribbean visual art sector. Mr. Speaker, both of these conferences were well received, and they also afforded the opportunity for some of our local artists and cultural practitioners to network with some of the regional and global counterparts. Mr. Speaker, the National Gallery was recognized for a top employer award in 2016, the 3rd year in a row. And not forgetting the aspiring cultural practitioners, the National Gallery's Creative Career Program, a career development work experience and summer internship and training program, welcomed 37 students and was awarded Chamber of Commerce Commitment to Education Grand Award at the inaugural Business Excellence Award in October. Another significant achievement was the publication of The Arts of the Cayman Islands, the first comprehensive book exploring the history of the Caymanian art history, and the National Gallery Nationals collection. This amazing resource has images of the works and bios of 75 artists. Thanks to the generous sponsorship, copies of this book were gifted to all the schools and libraries in Cayman. And if you are wondering how you might get a copy, I'm pleased to advise you, Mr. Speaker, that the book is currently for sale in the National Gallery's gift shop. I'm proud to announce, Mr. Speaker, that as becoming minister, I took a tour to the National Gallery and met with the director and viewed the many pieces. And I asked her, as I do when I tour each department, what is your main desire here in the budget? And she said if she could only get some funding to buy some more Caymanian art. And I was amazed that she said that. And I can advise this honorable house that this art will be bought and purchased now before December 2017. For 5 local Caymanian artists' works will now be bought and displayed at the National Gallery. The National Gallery also celebrated its 20th anniversary in 2017. Celebrations were launched with a maritime art exhibition featuring 35 local artists and continued with the Art on the Road project of classroom visits to all Cayman Islands primary schools with a maritime-themed activity. Also, Mr. Speaker, I trust you will agree that much work has been done and much has been achieved by the agencies under my ministry. I do recognize that much of this work was initiated prior to my recent victory in the general elections and my appointment as minister, but I am very grateful for the opportunities that I have had to bring some of these programs forward to the important milestone. Sometimes we have a lot of plans, but not a lot of signatures. I would like to go on record, Mr. Speaker, to thank all the hard-working, professional head of department in my ministry, their teams, for the work they have done and continue to do. And I also want to thank the fantastic team at my ministry for their efforts to deliver on the government's policies and for their support during my first few months as their new minister. Looking ahead, Mr. Speaker, while reports indicate that much has been achieved over the past year, I believe in some respects the work is just getting started and there's much more to be done. Accordingly, I would like to now outline some of the ministry agencies' plans for 18-19 financial year. Starting in the area of healthcare, be focusing the efforts across the areas of improved financial management and performance, delivering high-quality patient care and enhanced patient experience, improving population health outcomes, future planning, improved data capturing and reporting, investing in future healthcare, leaders, expanding care in the sister islands, and increasing public awareness. Turning first to the area of improved financial management performance, which has been a subject of a great deal of discussion these past few weeks. I will start by noting that as minister responsible for health, I, like my colleagues in the government, have a goal of ensuring that the Health Services Authority do the break back of the issues around the financial management in particular, but in some cases around performance outcomes as well. These concerns have been perennial, and whatever the cause, we must find a solution. As the Premier noted, we will need to meet with the board and management and determine how best to move forward successfully. Perhaps with the assistance of a professional independent review, but we must get this fixed. Mr. Speaker, focusing on the positive, the Health Services Authority has put forward an action plan to improve things. They are working hard to have a clean audit opinion through the strengthening of financial records, implementation of a robust compliance program, and further enhancements of existing payment policies. The authority has contracted with a reputable third-party agency to collect outstanding debts. The authority is working to strengthen internal controls and payment policies to ensure prompt payment is received, including from insurance companies and government agencies. The HSA also plans to reduce operational expenditure by implementing an energy management program for phased replacement of lighting fixtures to new and more energy efficient LED fixtures, commission an engineering study to determine improvements to modernize the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. This will help reduce utility costs, improve system reliability, and be better for the environment. Review human resources needs and develop plans to determine appropriate staffing levels for all areas of the hospital operations and to seek to reduce high levels of overtime expenditure. Reviewing all areas of hospital operation, determine opportunities for partnership with the private sector to achieve greater efficiencies and cost reduction. Introduction of an employee wellness program to improve employee health and wellness, and incentivize employees to pursue healthy activities while reducing staff healthcare costs, and with regards to the authorities' plans for delivering high quality patient care and enhanced patient experience. Some of the action items include pursuit of a Joint Commission International accreditation to measure and certify the HSA's clinical quality against international standards, and implement robust external oversight of key clinical quality goals and performances. I note, Mr. Speaker, that this has been a stated goal for over a year, perhaps 2 years. And I intend to push the HSA and its management and board to get this done next year. They have been successfully working to have their labs JCI accredited, and it should be part of their plans to extend this to all the medical services as part of delivering quality patient care and improving outcomes. The implementation of a patient and family advisory committee with representation from a broad cross-section of the community to provide advice, feedback, and external review of patient processes to continuously enhance the patient experience at all HSA facilities. Recruitment of additional patient experience staff to proactively address patient concerns, provide support to patients and families with navigating the hospital system, coordinate appointments, and serve as patient advocates. Improvements to the accident and emergency with the addition of 2 clinical consult rooms to increase patients throughout the emergency room and reduce waiting times. Mr. Speaker, I can only tell you that I visit the A&E area after hours, and sometimes I am there by myself, and it still takes a long time. Just need to be honest, Mr. Speaker. We need to do something, and if us as a government cannot find a way to assist the HSA in improving just this small problem that they have, I think it will be a failing. Considering the needs for expansion of clinical services to meet the growing healthcare needs of the community, including addition of dedicated cardiology department, as well as in acute care and other services. But Mr. Speaker, whilst this is a stated objective of the management and the board, I am of the view that as a part of their plans, as I noted earlier, to determine opportunities for partnerships with the private sector, it behooves us and the HSA to ensure that we are not needlessly duplicating services unnecessarily by any of the proposed expansions. In my view, where an affordable and quality service is available at other healthcare institutions, we should think very, very carefully before introducing additional services. And this includes services at Health City Cayman Islands and at Doctors Hospital. Often, Mr. Speaker, we serve customers or patients best by focusing on what we do well and leave others to do what they do well. The HSA will also be looking at introducing efficiencies with better use of technology, initially by providing more convenience to patients via online appointment bookings. Mr. Speaker, regards to improving the population health outcomes, the authority plans to expand the K-Health program to include civil servants and other targeted population groups as a critical strategy to improve population health outcomes and reduce the levels of chronic non-communicable diseases. The authority plans to develop a 20-year master facility and service development plan to meet the growing population and healthcare needs of the Cayman Islands community over the next 2 decades. This process will include a review of the district health centers, as well as the Georgetown Hospital, Faith Hospital, and Little Cayman Clinic. Mr. Speaker, the authority will also undertake the implementation and enhancement of health information data systems to ensure accurate and adequate capture of health data to better inform health policy and implementation. Trend population health statistics and reporting, and measure health outcomes against international benchmarks and the World Health Organization health development goals and measurements. Another key goal for the authority in coming financial year is the expansion of training and development opportunities for young Caymanians to pursue careers in health through increasing available spots in the student summer internship program, collaboration with stakeholders on the scholarship opportunities for advanced specialist training, increasing available opportunities for physical internship and training, as well as enhancing the authority's capabilities as a teaching institution for students in the nursing program at the University College of the Cayman Islands and clinicians at the University of the West Indies. Just recently, Mr. Speaker, I was proud to see 10 new Caymanian nursing students graduate from the nursing school. They're about to embark on a rewarding career, and I know that in years to come, we will see many more Caymanians, men and women, join the nursing field. And I would also like to say, Mr. Speaker, that I was equally proud to see some 28 graduates from the School of Hospitality. As the Premier noted, we need to have our young people once again look to professional trades. And yes, hospitality, like nursing, is a professional trade. And Mr. Speaker, the authority plans to extend care in the sister islands and increase staff for the Little Cayman Clinic to enhance 24-hour coverage and service. Mr. Speaker, the Health Services Authority has ambitious plans for the coming financial year. I believe that with hard work and dedication, these goals can be achieved. But as the Premier noted when he gave his policy statement, it is important to ensure that we carefully consider the future of the HSA and that improving the efficiencies and effectiveness of our healthcare system will require a long-term strategic change and not short-term fixes and plans that go nowhere. There's a lot of good work being done, and we will collectively ensure that this continues and is enhanced further. In my opinion, the HSA must assess its core business and improve on this, and that we must appreciate and encourage private partners. The Department of Health and Regulatory Services, from the upcoming financial years, Department of Health and Regulatory Services, among other things, plan to maintain and monitor the National Health Insurance System database for medically indigent persons, effectively collect the segregated insurance fund payments, and monitor the number of insured persons in the Cayman Islands, resolve disputes and complaints and queries about the provision of health insurance, review and update the standard health insurance fees, monitor and enforce the standard premium for the standard health insurance contract, maintain a public education campaign on health insurance and health practice legislation, and importantly, to investigate the feasibility of an affordable schedule of health insurance benefit that specifically meets the needs of the retirees and older persons. Mr. Speaker, this last item is an important one as it's a part of what I expect will be a review of our overall healthcare and health insurance system. It is important, in fact, it is necessary that we find a way to allow older persons who can afford to pay for health insurance to do so. But it must be affordable and it must provide suitable benefits that meet their needs. It is our senior years that we most need health care and insurance cover. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry will be undertaking a review of the health practice law and regulations in the new year. While the legislation was comprehensively reviewed in 09-10, the time has come for another comprehensive review to be done to make sure it is still fit for purpose and provides an appropriate governing framework. This review will be undertaken in consultation with relevant stakeholders, and I hope to bring the amendments to this Honorable House in the second half of 2018. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Counseling Services has plans to further enhance their services during the 18-19 budget period. At Caribbean Haven Residential Center, specific treatment options will be available within the context of the program offered there to meet the needs of a portion of the population who have substance abuse issues and struggle concurrently with mood disorders and other mental health problems. At the Counseling Center, new options will be developed to improve treatments for clients, including those who are recreational marijuana users, to educate them and address any potential dependency issues. Partnerships with other agencies will see increased referrals to parenting programs offered through the Family Resource Center. This will include services for families of residents of the Keys Foundation homes in order to support their reintegration back into their family. In addition, Mr. Speaker, services provided in Cayman Brac by the Counseling Center and the Family Resource Center staff will be increased to more adequately meet the needs that has been identified. The National Drug Council will continue their important work in the upcoming budget, including increased programs in the schools include primary schools throughout the year. They also plan to conduct the ninth cycle of the Cayman Islands Student Drug Use Survey in 2018 to help capture data that will describe the prevalence and patterns of alcohol and other drug use among Cayman Islands students in years 7 through 12. The data from this study is important to help them understand the nature and extent of the drug problem amongst middle and high school students, track changes in drug use patterns over time, and aid the development and strengthening of prevention programs and policies. The National Drug Council has identified some areas for legislative reform that they hope to advocate for and assist within the coming financial years. These include revisions and updates to the misuse of drugs law, legislation to create a framework to address precursors to drugs, and enhance legislative provisions and policies for prescription drugs monitoring. This last area is of particular importance, Mr. Speaker, as there has been evidence in student surveys and in the collection of reporting of narcotic and psychotropic drugs that suggests the misuse of abuse of prescribed drugs. I mentioned the annual healthcare conference early in my contribution, and many benefits and initiatives that have come out of the conference over the years. A couple of years ago, the theme focused on embracing emergent trends in health, and it has included some speakers from a focus on ensuring quality, dignified, meaningful end-of-life care.
Honorable member, Minister, unless you can finish in another couple of minutes, I propose to take the break. How much more time you would want? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it gives me great pride to be a part of the government that is moving forward with this project in terms of ISWIMS, Integrated Solid Waste Management System, as we call it in the ministry. This is an important project which represents a long-term sustainable solution for all three islands. It has reached the important preferred bidder milestone, and negotiations are ongoing to arrive at a contract. This has been a long road to get to this point, and the ministry has been following the framework for fiscal responsibility procurement processes to reach to this point in the project. But I believe that the result of the time and care that has been taken in it is a project that will meet our needs for decades to come. The existing landfills on all three islands will be closed and remediated, and we will see increased household goods recycling, composting of yard materials and waste-to-energy plant, and a small engineered landfill to accommodate the residential waste. This integrated system will reduce the volume of waste going to the landfill by almost 90%, which will be a significant achievement. We are on track, Mr. Speaker, to see the ISWIMS fully implemented and operational in early 2021. Components of the system will be coming online between now and then, so residents can expect to see some changes before that completion date. I am very excited to see this important project moving forward. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the steering committee members, my ministry team, and the major projects office team for their tremendous effort. They have made this possible and finally put this much-needed solution to our long-standing problem within our reach. Mr. Speaker, I want to note I'm happy that we are funding up to 1.1 million for the eradication of the green iguana, kick off the program in our islands. This will need to be an ongoing project, Mr. Speaker, but we are making a serious start with the services available to us. Mr. Speaker, housing is also one of my areas, and I will tell you that I am happy to be the minister, to be able to finally start some new houses in these islands. And we haven't built any homes in probably about 5 years. And I'm happy that within 2 months we should start building. Everything is in order. The site preparation has already been done. And we hope to move forward very quickly. The board has just been put together. Very excited about the board, and believe that they have the interests of Cayman at heart, and believe that all peoples of this island who desire a home should have the opportunity to own a piece of this rock. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleagues in this honorable House for their support during our government's young tenure, and note that I look forward to continuing to work with them for the benefit of the Cayman Islands. Mr. Speaker, I must mention that I am encouraged by a motion being brought to the House by my Bordentown colleagues. And I pray we find a way to incorporate this, as it has great potential to employ Caymanians. All parties campaigned on this. All of us campaigned on it. And happy to see the Bordentown members bring this motion forward. And we can only do our best to ensure that as a government, we listen to the motion and see of a way that we can together move this forward. But I thank my Bordentown colleagues for bringing this forward, Bordentown West and Savannah, as I understand it. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank my hard-working heads of department and ministry of staff for their efforts and support in delivering the services and programs of my ministry. While I am sure you will agree that much work has been done and many good things would have been achieved, there is still much more to do. I am confident that if we all work together, we can do great things for the people of the Cayman Islands. And, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that as it's my first budget, and I want to thank the Deputy Governor and all the work he has been doing, the civil service. We have a really smart civil service team, You ought to be proud of those thousands of Caymanians that are in there. They're very smart as you sit and listen to them. I just need to think that we need to have stronger conversations, better direction in terms of what does it mean when a politician is elected? What does that mean? Even if it's not the one that you preferred. And I think there's a lot of work to be done there. And we need to ensure that it is very meaningful that when we elect a politician, that they can have some effect and not seem powerless. We are the persons who make policy. And as long as we can remember that part, the rest should be fine. I want to thank, once again, the people of Bordentown East for selecting me out of the very hard process. I had to compete against everybody. I'm the only politician who never had a politician on their platform. I can't say I'm proud of that.
You know you had them behind the scenes.
But I just want to say, I know that in 2021 they will be there. Well, hopefully, as a government, we'll do a good job, and we'll have to stick together. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me this time on this honorable floor to deliver my first budget speech. I want to thank my family. I want to thank God. God bless. Good night.
The House will be suspended until 6:45.